Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Daily AI Show Live. Today is October 24th, 2025. It's Friday. We're 1 week out from my favorite holiday of the year, Halloween. And today you've got myself and Andy, and I think maybe Karl maybe will jump in as well here to bring you home for the end of this week. Hopefully you guys have had a great week so far. You're excited about your weekends or whatever you have going on. Believe it or not, we're getting a little bit of fall weather here in Tampa, so I have nothing to complain about. Although I do feel like I should reverse my mirror so Georgia isn't reversed on my shirt. As always, we're going to jump into some of the news. We didn't get to a ton of news sections. We kind of went deep dive into the news yesterday, which is totally fine. So today I think we'll do a little bit more, fast paced. I'm sure you have a few left over from yesterday as well, Andy. And then we'll get into the topic that we actually didn't get to yesterday either, because we wanted to talk about napkin. Go back and watch that episode yesterday. We actually had a really great conversation about Claude skills, but it was more about Claude code. Karl had brought up some good points, and we're talking about how do you actually train future workforces? How do you get them where they need to be so you don't feel like you're just repetitively talking about the tool and the tool itself, but actually what I was saying is like more about the AI fluency. So go watch yesterday's episode because I think we got into some really cool nooks and crannies there. But today, let's kind of kick it off with some news. Then, like I was about to say, we'll talk about the Ethan Malik post from now 2 days ago that I thought was really interesting. We just didn't get around to yesterday. So I don't know, Andy, do you want to kick it off with whatever you feel like is maybe one from yesterday or another one?
I want to something that's newer actually than yesterday.
Okay.
But I have some things that I'll kind of reference back to about what we discussed yesterday in the near future. But right now I want to talk about agentic browsers, because almost everybody's out there playing with that now. Perplexity came out with their Comet browser a while ago, and it's still considered by some of the people who have had the opportunity to compare them to be, marginally better than the ones that have been more recently released. For example, just a few days ago, OpenAI released their Atlas agentic active browser, one that can work on your desktop and actually take actions on the web for you. And then just a couple days later, yesterday, Microsoft updated their Edge browser.
Yep.
They have their own browser that I think I have loaded it up once and looked at it, but I'm a Chrome person. Why? To a large degree because Chrome manages all of my passwords and all my history. I just don't feel like I need to move on. But to date anyway, Google hasn't added to Chrome those capabilities that now are being demonstrated by Perplexity Comet, Atlas, and now Edge Copilot mode. So what Microsoft did is they updated their Edge browser, and it now allows it to reason across open tabs. So I have a lot of tabs open. It can, if I had instead of using Chrome, if I were using Edge, I would be able with those multiple tabs to ask Copilot about interface across multiple open tabs. Oh, I have 2 tabs open that are on this same subject that I'm kind of researching. Take those 2 tabs and synthesize what's available in both. That's real. That's going to be happening. So, and it can also summarize information for you. It can fill out forms. So if you have a tab open with a fillable PDF, I can give it instructions vocally to fill out that form. I say, oh yeah, no, on the next, put X and Y, right? That sort of thing. And it can, book hotels for you and do all those other kinds of agentic things. So, this also points to, the direct competition that now exists between formerly tightly, related partners, Microsoft, the major investor in OpenAI, and OpenAI itself. But now they're competing directly in the product space. And so we'll see who wins.
100% agree. I love that you brought this up. It was one of the topics I definitely wanted to talk about was, what they're doing Edge. And it does seem like everybody has sort of come out in the same week. I do want to say, because you said, Google hadn't. Well, Chrome did make updates though, because like, for instance, and it might be, I might have had to have turned this on as part of Labs. So I'll have to fact check myself on that one. But For me, if I go into the URL, I can just type a Gemini prompt in there. And when I do that in the search bar, it will bring up AI mode immediately and say, hey, here's the answer to it. So just like I can in Perplexity, whereas if I'm in the URL, the search bar rather, and I just type a Perplexity type prompt, hey, go look this up for me, it'll just open up Perplexity and do its thing. Google will do that too. It's like, it's Google's hybrid, right? Where it's still, you're still getting search results. So it's giving you sort of the best of both worlds. I don't mind it actually. I think it is valuable.
That's an AI feature inside and
Correct.
accessible
Yeah.
within the Chrome browser. But these AI first browsers like Atlas and now like Edge Copilot mode, they are able to look at and take actions on the windows and tabs you have open. That's
Fair
another
point.
level that I don't see happening in Chrome right now. But of course, it's going to be there soon.
And let's point out too, because Greg was mentioning he uses Brave. I do as well. I use Brave, not exclusively, but I use Brave. Right now, literally on my computer, I have Chrome, Brave, Comet, and Edge all open. That's because I have too many clients. So that's more not because I'm scatterbrained like that. Back in the day, I would just use Chrome, but it is easy to keep something separate, especially when we're dealing with like CRMs and stuff, because what happens is you log into one CRM and it thinks you want to log out of the other. So sometimes you gotta separate, and it's just quite honestly easier. But what I wanted to say was not my problems. My point to saying that was that like Comet, Brave, they're built on the Chromium package. Same thing Chrome is, but it's called Chromium, right? So it's built on that package of it. So the nice thing is that your bookmarks and all that stuff work very, very, easy in there. Obviously, Edge is its own Microsoft thing. What they did with Atlas, I would assume, is its own unique thing. And so it'll be interesting to see if these sort of, not to say this isn't net new, but I get the feeling they would have called it something else in Edge if it was like, because they call try Copilot mode in Edge. If they had ground up built something new, Andy, I think they would just give it a different name, quite frankly. And so I think that's more of a, I don't want to call it a bolt on, but it's like better agentic features than what we see in Chrome right now. So it'd be interesting though, because like Comet was built from the ground up. It appears maybe Atlas was built from the ground up. And is there some competitive advantages of not trying to bolt on versus that? I don't really know, but it's a great conversation. So, hey, welcome, Karl. We're just still in the news, and Andy was just, the first news story was about Microsoft Edge's adding their sort of like Copilot mode to it, some advanced features. We're just talking about there's like this week or this last week or two seems to be the week of advanced browsers, right? Because of all the ones that are out there. I still use Comet, by the way. I like Comet. I know other people too. In fact, I was teaching on Tuesday, and afterwards I said, I'll stay after to answer any questions. And I had one gentleman stay after, and he goes, I don't have anything about what you taught. It's fine. He goes, but I see you're using Comet. He's like, so he wanted to talk about that. I had shared my screen. He saw that I was using. He's like, what do you think? And so we talked about that for a little bit. One of the things I do want to talk about is ChatGPT, OpenAI. They've been coming out with a lot of stuff lately. And the thing that you saw come out yesterday was company knowledge, among other things. So Atlas isn't the only thing they sort of shipped. And so this is something that can end up getting buried, but actually can be super, super valuable. Basically, company knowledge, even here it says, today we're introducing company knowledge for ChatGPT Business, Enterprise, and EDU. Company knowledge brings all the context from your connected apps together in ChatGPT, giving you answers specific to your business so you can make decisions, take action, and get things done. Then it goes on to say, with company knowledge, the information in your connected apps like Slack, SharePoint, Google Drive, and GitHub become more useful and accessible. It's powered by a version of GPT-5 that's trained to look across multiple sources to give you a more comprehensive, accurate answers. I love this. I have not had time to play with this yet, but this is sort of how I already work with my clients. I build knowledge documents. It is the first thing I do with my clients and say, we've got to build a comprehensive knowledge document. What does that end up looking like? Well, a lot of times it ends up looking like a markdown format of the website. But it's so valuable because obviously if I can have a really easy document for my clients to look at that has everything from customer success stories. I work in the sales side of things. So customer success stories, business buyer personas, ideal client personas, ICPs, those kind of things. That's really valuable. And just a clear way of explaining what their products and services are. The core of like, what do you do? What do you sell? And who do you sell it to? So I already do this because it's so vital to the work that I do with my clients building with AI solutions. So this is great because this means now like I'm in multiple different client team accounts for ChatGPT. And this is something that once I get my hands on and I understand it a little bit more, I want to do some internal testing at scale that I'll be deploying and saying, hey guys, you need to add this document. Let's add it to your company knowledge. Let's start thinking about this because it is very valuable if there's been some communication in Slack about a particular client and issues that they're having or delays or something like that, or scope creep or something, right? And I can pull that Slack in and ask questions inside of ChatGPT. I can pull in the information from that thread that's valuable, but also knowing that it has this better company knowledge is better than just like a system prompt. It's like hopefully like a true markdown company knowledge document like what we build. That becomes really valuable because it's always going to be looking through the lens. I do this with all my custom GPTs. I do this with all my agents. We'll see how good it is because quite frankly, if it's just a beefed up system prompt, it'll fail. So I'm curious to see how good it is at pulling this in. Almost like we talked like with skills. Will it pull in the right information at the right time? Is it smart enough with its router system to grab what's needed only when needed? So I'm excited about it, but I don't know more.
One is that this is an enterprise application, right? So this is built just as Microsoft might build something to really respect the user permissions that you have at every layer. And so it's a much more difficult thing than just creating a connector to a data repository. Mm-hmm. And so it's part of OpenAI's enterprise strategy, and they're moving very assertively towards building a much larger component of their revenue coming from enterprise as opposed to consumers. 70% of current revenue for OpenAI is coming from individual users.
Wow.
Right? That's a huge percent.
I wonder what the flip is for Claude. It's got to be the opposite, right?
Yeah, the other way around, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So I believe this is on track for what we sort of notionally thought years ago would happen eventually, which is, you would have a system, an AI system that had access to every one of your components in your system stack inside the enterprise, the CRM, the ERP, all of these. And I believe that this is what this new company knowledge thing is being architected to do. So I think it's going to be well beyond just something like skills, which is totally different and is a part of the agentic web, in my view, right? It's basically creating packaged instruction sets for deterministic operation of a particular function and making that function callable through a protocol. That's different from what company knowledge is here now. I think this is going to capture the attention of big enterprise. And if they weren't already a ChatGPT shop, a ChatGPT enterprise user, this, I think, opens the door to, perhaps even smaller enterprises saying, okay, we're not going to wait around for Google or some other player, Microsoft or other. Let's go ahead and try company knowledge and see if the considerable capabilities of ChatGPT 5 and the coming ChatGPT 6 can actually make sense of our entire system for our users, and also move toward that day when we imagined a system that has access to all of the current system stack and say, this could be improved overall by replacing this thing that you're paying $60,000 a year for with something that I build for you.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to take over with an AI coding system that can actually improve the overall business process workflow that's defined by your system.
I saw you react to that, Karl. Go, there it is. So go ahead, Karl. What's your thought on that?
No, actually, I wasn't on Andy's thing.
Oh, okay.
So what two things on this. We have, for a lot of our clients, we have a lot of companies either move them from Copilot to ChatGPT for Business, or just have them set up for business because it's much easier for where the people are. Yesterday it totally screwed over a couple of our clients because of how they used connectors, and company knowledge changed how those connectors were working, because they were using the connectors to, instead of drag drop files, use connectors to do analysis. But when I was reading the documentation, so the version of GPT-5, I think, is trained differently on how it grabs knowledge from different programs, whatever you've connected to it.
Especially trained for that specific purpose.
Yeah.
And how to synthesize that data.
Those broke their workflows, which totally, like, they were not happy. But what's lucky is that, great, we have Atlas as a kind of a workaround, because instead of using the connector, you can just use Atlas. And I didn't know you could do this. You could use Atlas to go to the page. That I knew, but I didn't know in Atlas that you can still schedule. So it's like, oh, go to this page, now schedule this analysis whenever. And then, so it's like, oh, so that's the workaround that you can go through, which is just like, oh, it's kind of the same thing, what you're trying to do, just a different way to do it. So I thought it was neat that those two options are available. But on another separate note, though, I think like companies like Glean, Covio, I think, what was it, I forgot what the other company was, that do enterprise search. I was like, oh, what purpose do you serve now? Because it's like, unless you put AI into that's cool, but aren't you just haven't you just effectively become a wrapper? Like, you just become a wrapper to what? And for those who don't know, Claude has the enterprise search connections too. So they launched it out for their teams and business. So yeah, it's I know. And I think obviously Gemini, doesn't it already have the native integrate to Drive and to Gmail in Workspace? Kind of. I'm not sure.
It does. I mean, I don't say much bad about Gemini or Google right now, because they have been shipping and its stuff has been good. But one area where I feel like, wow, I was expecting more in 2025. I might have even made it one of my predictions this year. I'm not sure, but I was expecting more in Workplace, honestly, because I just thought like, oh, this is low hanging fruit. You've got Gemini, you've got Workplace, it's all your stuff. Just create me some like centralized landing page where it's a search bar, but it's a search bar across all connected, my folders, my, things that are shared, permissions already are set up,
like
email. Yeah. Well, I mean, like something that's just going to cohesively look across that with like a semantic search, that can just natural language search. And I mean, I don't believe I've missed that. I don't think that actually exists like that. So I can't imagine it's coming. Obviously, it's just a matter. I guess maybe it's more complicated or whatever. But yeah, I'm definitely.
I think like it can't be, because if Microsoft can kind of pull it off in a crappier way, then I'm sure Google can. Yeah,
and they're dealing with OneDrive and SharePoint. Google just has Google Drive.
Yes. So, and that's what I mean. It's like, in Teams, most companies don't even know you could do this. In Teams, if you go to Copilot and you put the slash, and because it's connected to your Microsoft Graph, you can actually say, hey, can you review my calendar and my emails of all the things that I did with this person, and then blah, 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 and do, can come up with 10 things or whatever the prompt is. And it actually does a pretty decent job, because it's connected to the calendar, to Outlook, and to your email and to your files, to combine them together. And it's a very neat feature. Very, very few people actually use it, but it's there. And I think the only time someone's actually pointed it out, it was on a video that Satya was using it, and they're like, "Oh, I want to do that," and I'm like, "Oh, it's easy. You can do that right now." I was like, "I never knew that," and I was like, "That was kind of it." But you'd think Google would have that maybe in I don't know does Google have a communications hub? I don't think they do. Maybe that's why that makes it difficult. Like Slack is
Slack. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, not to my knowledge. I mean, it literally should be in Google Drive. It should be right there. But yeah, I agree.
I bet you there is an engineer right now who, if they listen to this, crying because there is one.
Yeah,
that just no one uses.
It could be. Well, Google. It could be. It could be. Let's make sure we move on, because I know, like Andy, you said you had maybe just a few other news stories, or Karl, if you have a few others. You guys have basically hit the two big ones I wanted to talk about today. But let's just hit a few others. We can do it more as a lightning round, and then we'll move on into we'll talk about Ethan Malick's post, and then we'll see where it goes from there.
Okay, I have one. Yesterday, we were talking about the Claude desktop upgrade, which I downloaded yesterday and upgraded to, and I started to use it, and I actually shared in our Slack channel that we use for the Daily AI Show. I shared, an example of what I did with that Claude desktop capability, and what I'm optimistic about with this desktop interface is kind of akin to what the browsers are making possible, because if the browser is your main way of interfacing with most everything that you work, and you're not really working in your personal file system or using individual applications on your desktop, an agentic browser with AI capabilities can do most of this stuff. But a desktop application goes a step further and even provides access to your file system and so on. So that seemed to me to be a way of getting to an assistant that I depend on every day in my main workplace computer. And so I thought Anthropic's really, leading the way here. But then I learned that OpenAI acquired a company called Software Applications Incorporated that has an emerging tool development that's not been released yet. You haven't seen it yet, called Sky. And Sky is it's a floating interface for Mac devices only, like it's for Mac users. Now, Mac users in enterprise are pretty widespread. Now, there's lots of PC users out there, but major enterprises like at Google, you won't find a lot of PCs operating at Google. It's going to be all Apple for their worldwide employees, right? So this tool, it's a floating AI interface on Mac desktops. It analyzes screen content and executes tasks across any application. So OpenAI is going to combine the tool set that's been developed by this company for Mac OS specifically with their AI to make what amounts to the completion of the vision that I have, which is I want an AI assistant on my desktop that can do anything and everything in the Mac OS system. And that's what they just did. And this is also, it's related to a method that OpenAI is using to acquire talent that's focused and actually has partially built product. It's called an acqui-hire strategy, where they acquire a company really to get the team that's doing something that they want to do, but they don't have the human resources to complete.
I had never really, I'm sure that's been around forever, but that didn't really hit my radar until like this year, or last year, I guess it probably was. But as far as like companies doing that, absorbing the talent without having to go through the regulations and things like that, it sort of seems like a workaround. But I feel like I hear about it all the time now, and it's like, I don't know, it probably was there, but I just, like anything else, you're not paying attention or focusing on that. That did bring up really quick, I'll say this, prompt injection, because OpenAI came out talking about prompt injection as it applies to Atlas, but so did Perplexity, talking about it for comment 2 days ago. So again, back to the sort of a theme here, going back to these browsers, talking about prompt injection. Prompt injection, by the way, is just, in a simple term, if somebody puts something that's not necessarily visible, could be code, could be text that's not clear on the screen, that would potentially tell the prompt to do something that was with malintent, right? So it could be, you know, malicious. It could do a lot of things. And obviously there's concerns here because Andy, you just pointed out, well, if it's on my desktop and it has access to certain files, what happens if I happen to go to a website that's got prompt injection on it? I have Atlas doing some agentic work there, you know, pulling information or whatever, and unknowingly it pulls in prompting with some malintent that then somehow, whatever, you know, worst case scenario, corrupts your files, holds your stuff ransom, whatever, right, Andy? So like, obviously it's a big deal. OpenAI came out and basically the way I read it, this is my summary of it, is like, this stuff is edge. This is the further part. You should be very careful. If you remember Claude, Anthropic way back in the day, it was like, you should probably, what's it called when you split your hard drive?
Partition.
And Jyunmi talked about it. This is going back months and months and months and months. I'm talking about computer use prior to their most recent stuff that they announced, like way back when you could put Claude on your desktop. And I think they just called it computer use. And they were like, yeah, you should probably partition your drive. There is always a chance that if you have AI running, it could do stuff that perhaps you don't want it to do. So anyway, just wanted to bring it up because this is heavily in the news. Anytime you're going to be talking about desktop applications, AI that takes over for you on a website, there is always going to be this issue with malware, other issues, safety concerns that otherwise exposing you in ways maybe you're not understanding. And I do think it just needs to be talked about because people are going to get excited about these tools and they're going to have it kind of wide open, not realize that OpenAI themselves is saying, hey, make sure you turn off when it can have file access and when it can. That's a switch you have to manually do. I don't think I think they're just going to turn it on and use it. And it's going to open people up to software problems, just like we have malware now. A lot of that is got a whole industry beside it, but it's a bit of a whack-a-mole. And this is going to be the same thing with AI, I believe. So they're all working on it, but I've yet to see some sort of validated solution that fights back against actual prompt injection.
The work that is being done on MCPs, that's like the biggest issue there, right? Especially with a lot of remote MCP servers. And this is why, like, I was reviewing tools like MCP Manager, but it's a pretty pricey solution where all the, you know, it's your gateway, all the MCPs connect to it, and it is essentially, it only allows the things that you want, the instructions you want, and how it breaks each MCP server into, you know, it's actually a pretty neat system. And I'm sure there's a couple of companies like it, but the price of that is quite high. And especially like when you can just go to Pulse MCP and be like, oh, I like that one. And this is why from an MCP side, you want to go with ideally the native, like if Asana has their own MCP, right, you put that in. So yeah, with how the browsers are working, totally. And I have made Atlas my default just because I want to make sure I properly test it instead of just like, it's hard for me if I don't, I'll just like Perplexities, I won't use it. It just will not, because I just don't, I don't know, maybe it's too hard for me to remember to open that browser to do whatever. So, but that's the thing. And I'm curious to see, because I'm kind of a little happy that OpenAI came out with that, because there's a lot of people talking about it through like, do not install these browsers, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. I'm like, they have raised really valid points. But then at the same time too, for example, the solution that we had, unless you know about this and actually know what it can do, you won't be able to take advantage of the capabilities. So it's like kind of that fine line between, you have to test it to know what it can do, but you have to be careful too. And most people can't do it, won't do that, whether they're afraid to do it or just don't know to do it. And you might be left out of something that could really help you. So it's kind of tough to tell people, just regular people, hey, use it, but you have to be careful. But if you use it, there's some cool stuff you can do, but you have to be careful.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's, we're right back to, things that look like articles that the three of us would, because we're active and working on the computers and stuff. But I talk to plenty of people, and it's not even an age thing. It's just, if you don't work with computers all the time or something like that, you're not just actively on websites, it's very easy. They're supposed to look like other articles that you might be interested in with clickbait. And then there's all the issues that go along with that. And, it's very easy from my standpoint to go, oh, look at that. That's so that's so obvious or whatever. But I could just as easily turn to my teenager and she could point out things that I'm missing because I'm just not actively using those tools. So it is all about like, how do you stay current? How do you stay active? And then obviously, like we were talking about yesterday, the training. Another part of that, I'm going to pivot on this. Another part of that whole discussion is what I wanted to bring up yesterday. And that was a post that Ethan Mollick put out yesterday. If you're not following Ethan Mollick on LinkedIn as well as other places, and he also has a blog that he puts out about twice a month, I would say. That's free. You can just sign up for it. I highly recommend that. We talk about him quite a bit because he has a great viewpoint on AI, and he talks a lot about the academics of it. But this one struck me, and it's fairly short. I'll just read it really quick. The fallout from the fact that data science / classical machine learning and generative AI are both called, quote, AI, has been remarkably broad and persistent. Policy addresses the wrong issues. Companies have been confused about who should lead efforts. Hiring is complicated. Hint, almost no one has more than 3 years of Gen AI experience. Products using AI might be referring to anything. Academic discussion is often muddled. Even just a narrow concern like AI bias has 2 entirely different meanings depending on which AI you're discussing. And these 2 meanings have largely non-overlapping problems, mitigation strategies, use cases, and potential harms. I really, really spoke to me because I feel like just recently in talking to clients and probably people, you guys and all that, I was like, yeah, this has sort of been on my mind too. So I just thought it was worth a quick conversation with you guys. I feel this, if I go back to 2017, I was working in business intelligence, And so I was working for a company that did business analytics. We built dashboards. We worked with really, really big data analytics companies like ClickSense and the other one's going right out of my head, ThoughtSpot and others, right? Yeah, just Looker back in the day, right, and all those kind of sets. So we would build these solutions, and I wasn't the coder, so we had people who wrote in SQL and knew how to do concatenates and left justifies and all the things. But the reason I bring that up is because we talked about AI all the time back then. But in 2017, we obviously did not mean generative AI. We meant machine learning. And so I feel like I've lived through this over the last less than decade of my life, last 8 years, which is really nothing, where, yeah, I was having conversations with people and we would have clients who were like, we want AI. And what they meant is they wanted algorithms, they wanted machine learning, they wanted the ability to move from predictive to prescriptive analytics. I've talked about that before. And that was still, I imagine, a really big part of it. Now come along 2022, we're at the end of October. 1 month from now, we'll hit the 3-year anniversary of ChatGPT 3 or 3.53 being released, right? And so like we're almost at the 3-year mark. And so, yeah, like to Ethan Mollick's point, if you see, I see them all the time, job requirements that are like, yada, yada, yada. It's all AI. They mean generative AI. And it'll say something stupid like a 4-year degree, a master, and 7 years experience in generative AI. Because the person writing the job has no concept. They're in HR or whatever. They have no concept of what the generative AI job role actually means. And the fact of the matter is, we're making it way worse on ourselves because there's multiple titles, and not titles, but multiple terms being used to mean similar or dissimilar things, on top of the fact that AI can mean machine learning or not, and algorithms and those kind of things. And then on top of that, people are just like net new making up words in the middle of job posts. And you go, well, what do they mean by that? Like, what is their intent behind that? Because I don't think they're talking about the same thing I am. I deal with this all the time. Agents is a good example. Co-pilots a year ago. Other wording that's come across. So I'm just curious. Like, that's where my brain is on this, and I fight this all the time. I feel like I'm constantly fighting against this shape-shifting landscape where the ground is moving underneath me, and I'm trying to build AI solutions. I'm trying to have intelligent conversations both internally and externally on this show. On top of that, And it's difficult because we can all be saying the same words, and in our minds, if we don't express it, we could be talking about three unique parts of AI. Do you guys get that feeling? Do you feel that frustration at all with what you're doing?
I would let me just
Sorry.
put forward the one term that I think is most it's most subject to this confusion around its specific connotations, because there are multiple connotations for it, and that is agent. Like you can have a workflow that is an agent,
Yep.
but that's not that's not the full range of what we mean when we talk about agentic AI, right? So anyway, that I would volunteer that one as a point of comparison, where some people think they have agents working and it's not really.
Look, I'm guilty of that. I had to back down off of that. I used to sit on my high horse because we would talk about in the show, and I'm like, that's not an agent. That's not an agent. That's not an agent. And I would, you know what Scale's website says? And it's, by the way, it's because of me. It would say we build AI assistants and we build AI agents. What do I mean by AI agents? AI workflows. I mean end-to-end workflows that have AI in them, or Zapier or otherwise, because that's what the client means. And so you have to meet them where they are. But it kills me, Andy, because I feel like you do. Like, that's not either, to your point, the full scope of an agent. It's certainly not agentic, but it's the term like Copilot that's being slapped on everything because everybody wants to say they're capable of building agents. I am literally running a course right now teaching sales people how to build their first agents.
Oh, don't worry. I will meet the client where they are, but I will silently, internally judge them 100%. I'll be judging them all the time. Be like, you fool. This is not an agent. While I'm saying, oh, this is blah, blah, blah agent.
Yeah. We'll call this an agent. Yeah.
I don't believe that. This is just garbage that I was speaking out, especially when you have stupid things like my Excel Copilot agent. And I'm like, oh my God. Or the Microsoft, the Microsoft Copilot agent. Like, no, this is a custom GPT, whatever they call this.
I think a term that somewhat disambiguates agent is assistant. You can have an AI assistant that marshals a workflow process, but is not possessed of agency. An agency I reserve for the idea that I've given an AI that has reasoning capabilities and action and function calling. I've given it permissions that allow it to go out and act in the world. That's an agent.
Right? Yeah. And it's not though. It's like because here, look, you're exactly what you're saying. And I feel this, and I feel exactly what you're saying, Gareth. A Zapier workflow isn't an AI agent. All right, Gareth, here's my answer to that. You're both right and wrong, because if that Zapier workflow has AI components to it, by the definition that a lot of my clients use, they would call that an AI agent. If you and I are talking, Gareth, I'd be like, yeah, dude, that's not, because it doesn't take agency, to your point. And that's what we all started talking about agents. That's how that term came up, was agentic. It was just like, to your point, Andy, it was going to do work on my behalf. A workflow does do work on my behalf, but it is mostly either triggered by me or by some set of triggers or standards or cron or something that kicks that off. It's not that it doesn't go off and do 16 steps on its own. It does. My end-to-end workflows, when they do stuff for Salesforce, do in fact do 16 steps on their own, and the client doesn't have to do it. They literally are able to turn their attention away from it. So that's sort of
a term that helps distinguish here or make a distinction is programmatic. A workflow is programmatic in that it follows a series of steps in a logical order. It may have conditional branching and so on, but it's nonetheless a program. It's an algorithmic approach. Agents go beyond algorithms to have sort of autonomous, active self-redirection in pursuit of an overarching objective. That's an agent. And that's what we're trying to build with AI. But there aren't too many examples yet. But we're getting closer and closer as agentic browsers, allow you to talk to it in natural language, give it an objective, and it goes and plans and executes a bunch of different steps using different, resources, including web search and interacting with the browser and filling out forms and and booking a certain component of a thing, that rises to the level of agency, in my view.
Okay, so I'll ask both of y'all this, and Gareth, you can listen along too, because Gareth is in the comments, and I appreciate you, Gareth, answering this too. Okay, if we'll use Salesforce because I build in there, right? If I have Salesforce, but right now, most of my clients are going to click a button that's going to say enrich with AI because it's easy, it's right there, it's just easy, right? And it goes off and it does stuff and works back. But I've said to them, hey, in the future state of this, you won't, if you have new opportunities, of any client is going to have 20 concurrent opportunities kind of going, and they're all at different stages of their opportunity, right? If I set a trigger, Andy or Karl or Gareth, and it kicks off once a day, okay, that trigger says, go look at all current opportunities. Mm-hmm. If some opportunities meet certain threshold or criteria, go do one of 15 different steps. Go look for recent emails. Go do new internet research on the company. Go look for something like that. Maybe it's through an MCP, right? Fine. And it does that. And in the morning, it does it at 4 a.m. And when I come in the morning on my computer, I have notifications to me that says, hey, Brian, I have reviewed all of your opportunities. I have noticed that this one is looking like it's going to stall because of X, Y, and Z. These are all skills, by the way, and all criteria that I would have built out on the back end. And I've gone ahead and preloaded this. I'm just waiting for your approval on it. If you say yes, it's done and dusted. Now, that was still triggered by time. It still went through and looked and made it took assumptions, Andy, to your point, and made decisions that I wasn't part of, but I had pre-built it on the back end. Is that an agent? I think you're muted.
I'll say yes to that. I think that's an
Karl?
agent.
I would assume it would be.
Right. Because it's doing work on my behalf without me having to be involved, right?
Well, I think like the thing that I'm thinking about is like, okay, did you give it a goal? Cool. And is it doing it? Is it creating the tasks itself to accomplish your goal that you didn't have to set out for it?
No, it's following a playbook. In this example, it's following a predetermined playbook that could be, look, it could be a very intelligent playbook. Like it could be a very intelligent MCP, but it's still following a playbook. It has to know somehow.
Yeah. And that's why I think like the spectrum of that. There was one who said there was something about like there is reactive, there is one that's interactive, that's semi-autonomous and fully autonomous, right? So your reactive would be like you just talking to whatever bot that you have. Then you have interactive where like it's like working with you, but then semi-autonomous would be it's just human in the loop in the checkpoints, and then there's fully autonomous like a Waymo, right? Waymo would be you would consider, everyone would consider that a fully autonomous, no human checkpoint. Humans are just extracting the metrics, literally, right? So I think it's more of a spectrum now rather than, because everybody's calling everything an agent, right? So it's such a bastardized term, and who knows what the definition is, right? All three of us have our own definitions, and everybody else has their own definitions. And yeah, we can kind of judge, and it doesn't matter too, right? Like, I wish we could have, even the definition of agency is something different, like has the very definitive term of what an agency is. So anyway, it's like,
look, that's the point of this conversation, is that it's difficult, right? And then, by the way, our comments, Gareth, Jude, Greg, Gareth, I love you guys. You guys are all in there, all, interacting and saying, look, this is the way I see it or what somebody said, if it's, who said this? Greg said, if you're just applying, if this, then that, you're just writing machine learning. I don't necessarily disagree with that. And I don't even disagree if somebody said to me, Brian, you're wrong for what I laid out to be an agent. It would have had to at some point come up with a novel new idea that was not in the playbook, but it felt right through its AI agency, its agentic workflow. and it came up with a new path that you had not previously defined. It was new to me. And I thought, geez, I didn't think of that. And it said, yeah, I already done this because it makes sense. Look at this, this, and this. And based on what Jake said, and I thought, that's not in the playbook. If that's what somebody said, hey, that's an agent, I'd say, okay, I have no problem with that.
So I think that here's a subtle way of teasing apart the if this, then that conundrum. So if I give it as an instruction, a set of if this, then that's different than if I give it a bunch of examples of if this, then that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So if I only provided them as examples, and I didn't say you must follow strictly if this, then that, and it has the ability to choose without supervision, and let's eliminate the check step where it's having to ask permission to proceed,
Mm-hmm.
where it ends up more like an assistant than it is an agent. So, but you give it an open agency to go ahead and take actions based on its understanding, learned from examples and context data. I think that becomes an agent, even if it's using if this, then that principles, reasoning principles that you've provided as examples. But if you give it explicit programmatic instructions that here, you're going to look at this document and then you're going to do this next and you're going to do that. If this document has, a confidence level of X, then you can proceed to this step and so on. Mm-hmm. Then that becomes more like a machine learning algorithm. But agency, I think, is there teasing you if you've instead provided it with general knowledge and access to your documents, and then given it an objective, and then it figures out its own plan based on that. But it's using principles of reasoning that you've provided in the examples.
I think this is where like tools like Devin initially in the beginning, and then where you start getting confused too is like when people use the term agentic, it's like, okay, what does that mean? Because that could mean a whole bunch of stuff, and people were using that as a kind of a workaround to full agency. So, and I think like, so, but I was thinking about, does it really matter now because of how prolific this word actually has become and how everybody's using it? Okay, so this actually is a side little tangent that I wanted to bring up. And because we're talking about all the different ways that we're using, what's a little discouraging, and I don't know if you've seen this, I don't know why it fed me. It was probably just an ad on this. It was like people who are getting people to buy a coaching program to make money off AI. Like it was one of those, if you buy my course, I will teach you how to make money in AI, right? Like that kind of stuff. And then it just happened that I'm now starting to see all of this, which is good because I wanted to flip it. And shout out to Jennifer Huffnagel there, who actually attended one of these things, and they were charging like $1,000 or $500 or whatever it is. And it was like, but it's less about AI and more about, hey, this is how much money you'll make, so buy my course kind of deal. And even the work that we're doing, it's sort of like, oh my God. Because all these people are using the term agent, then you're going to have a whole bunch of people who are going to think this is like a get rich quick, I'm going to now be a trainer in AI. But we all know the amount of work that we put in learning all this stuff, testing all this stuff, understanding the nuances, like beyond just the tools, is you can't teach that in a $500 like course. It's just it's not possible. So when you talk about agents, I don't know, just be a lot of more people coming in here and being like, you're like, dude, you don't know what you're talking about. And that's what people are going to start mentioning. And it's unfortunate because if it rubs people and businesses the wrong way, then we end up having to clean it up. And yeah, I know, because one of our new clients we have to go in and clean up or redo some of the stuff because somebody left a mess. And we're like, who is this? And I hate spitting on other consultants because all the work that they did into it, but you're looking at it and you're like, did this group even know what they're doing? And that's, you know, right. Side note to all the tangents and stuff, agencies.
Okay. You ready for something completely different?
Wait, sure. Go for it.
All right. So this is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a couple of days. A groundbreaking research study published on October 20th. This is just 4 days ago, from the University of Texas at Austin, Texas A&M, and Purdue University, demonstrates that large language models trained on social media posts suffer lasting cognitive damage that cannot be reversed through retraining. So if you've been worried about decline of your own brain as a using social media, here is AI proof that that's what's going to happen to you. So this, what it did is it showed that these AI systems developed irreversible brain rot when exposed to viral social media content. So they trained it on the fully pre-trained model. Then they gave it viral social media posts and gave that as subsequent fine-tuning training. And the LLMs showed significant declines in reasoning ability and developed antisocial personality traits that mirror the effects of excessive social media consumption in humans. What? Okay, so here's some stats on it. The 100% viral content feeds, right, saw the reasoning accuracy plummet from 75 to 57 on benchmarks, while their long context understanding, their ability to integrate and synthesize knowledge across a large database or a large context data, dropped from 84 to 52, just from continual exposure to junk web text from social media. There you go. So stop it now.
I would like to know more about if it was cherry picked social media data. I'm not gonna sit here and
it was cherry picked. They picked viral ones. The ones
that almost makes it make sense to me that it was viral. I think for every viral one, there's some really good stuff out there. I mean, just yesterday I saw people who were, it was amazing because of SNAP benefits and stuff like that. It was just local too. And somebody was like, hey, listen, I understand a lot of people are not going to get their SNAP benefits. I'm worried about you around the Thanksgiving thing. I'd like to start making some Thanksgiving meals and get you help if that's a problem. And oh my goodness, the love that came back from that. It was the better side of social media. So I think there's a point to that, Andy. If I trained anything on viral, it would be like, or Grok, or anything like that, it would be like, I think it's not the best of us, but I would also love to see a fully different trial or research done where it was fed the best of social media. Because I'm just curious. I'm just curious, right? Does that make it better, or whatever?
I think so. I think so. There's a lot to be learned from really important influencers and content producers on social media, but they don't go viral. Right?
Yeah,
you have to pick and choose those. Anyway, I can't post this to the chat, but I'm putting this up. This is the
here, I'll do it.
Perplexity study there. If you want to post that to the chat, I'll just take a look at it, because there's a lot more information there in that research paper.
Okay, so I love that Jude called it out. He goes, he said, and now for something completely different. Wasn't that from Monty Python? Does that cover? Yeah, I was like, because that's what I thought it too, and then Jude called it out, which I thought was really cool. I love that pivot. Okay, we're gonna pivot again and wrap this up for the week. I do want to give a quick. You said the word earlier, conundrum, but you were talking about a different one. Can I just plug the conundrum that's going to come out tomorrow? I got excited about this one. Here's two quick things on this. One, it's a fun topic. It is about sort of AI memory, but it's more about the family dynamic. It's like, what if AI memories were sort of like an ancestry DNA? What if this goes on 30, 40 years? And Andy maybe you're, of course you're not, but Andy, I won't use your name. I won't use your name. Maybe somebody in your family, two generations back was kind of like a deadbeat, right? Everybody's got the deadbeat uncle or aunt or whatever.
Oh, I've got one, my
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah. So everybody's got somebody in their family. Well, let's just say that person, whoever that is that you're imagining, understands that we're going decades into the future with AI, right? And this is part of the family dynamic, is this like collection of family stories and all this stuff, which could be great. But also this uncle decides, I'm getting closer to the end here, and I'd like to maybe overwhelm the AI with that. Remember that time I showed up at your baseball game unannounced and it was great? Remember that time I got you a birthday present? And so could you SEO fix or fix, for lack of a better term, not fix good, fix bad, and manipulate, if you had enough power, these future memories of it. And also, if you go back enough generations, I'm sure if I did and I had family, I might find some people who are on the wrong side of history for all sorts of reasons, from civil reasons to Holocaust. I mean, we have some messy stuff in our backgrounds, right? So where does that fall into? Anyway, more importantly, that's a cool topic, and I hope you guys go and listen to the show tomorrow. But what I will also say is I listened to the final edit of it from Notebook LM. I think they did something, Andy. It was at a different level. I told Amanda about it, my wife. I was like, you got to listen to this podcast. The two voices really picked up. Now they're being trained off Perplexity Pro. So it could be one step earlier that the Perplexity research was at a different level. So it's hard to tell for me, because I read the Perplexity research. I'm like, that's good, but there is something different about this podcast from Google Notebook LM than I've heard before. It was like a chill moment on my skin, like, oh, that feels different. So anyway, I hope people go ahead and go take a listen at. They're usually they're less than 20 minutes, even with my intro in it. But I'm excited about this one because I just think
this is the one that's coming out in our newsletter
tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow, Sunday morning.
No, that's the newsletter. The Conundrums go out Saturday at 10 a.m.
Oh, they get posted on YouTube on Saturday. Okay.
Spotify. It's okay. They used to be on YouTube, but that's because they were video and they just didn't perform well on YouTube. So I stopped because it was extra work for me, frankly. And so now I only do them as an audio podcast on Spotify. And of course, by Spotify, I mean Apple Podcasts and all your other podcast platforms.
Yeah, the whole idea of the conundrum, I mean, determining what are these sort of point counterpoint issues that don't get easily resolved, and then creating a podcast out of that, it was a brilliant stroke. And thank you for starting those and continuing to produce those.
I love them. They take a little work, but I think it's also, I've said this to us outside the show, and that's the last thing I'll wrap up on. What I find curious about it is, I hope this is because people feel like it's quality. We don't see any drop off on our views, our listens on Spotify for Conundrum episodes. We will on average, we will be somewhere around 300 listens. We've grown over the years. We're about 300 listens per show. It will sit in that range. Some do better than others, whatever. They all have me live at the beginning. So it does start with me. And then I introduce it. And I always say it's AI because I want people, in case that's the first one they've ever listened to, they know. But yeah, I think it's a good example of, you can use AI as part of your communication strategy. And in this particular case, I mean, go find out for yourself. You go listen to it. Not you, but everybody go listen to it tomorrow. This is my plug for it. And you tell me if you think that podcast, that Voices from Google Notebook LM, there's something maybe a little bit better about this episode than ones I've heard in the past. So there you go. Go do that. The newsletter will go out on Sunday. Yes, Andy.
I'm looking forward to hearing that, because I also had a kind of an aha, tingle moment doing something with Google's guided learning interface, which I was so impressed by it that I tried to figure out how to reproduce that guided learning capability in the application that I was building, and it doesn't seem possible. And they haven't actually provided an API access to the guided learning module. And very few people, because they're still using Notebook LM, are going over to the guided learning thing. And it is amazing. They've 100%. Really done an incredible job with education on that one.
Yep. I use it with my daughter. She's got access to it because it is great, and it does help her a lot. And I mean, she just took her PSATs as a freshman and did well. And I think this is only going to be, she's going to do even better over time, and she's going to be a better student. She's going to learn more. She's going to have better comprehension because of some of these AI tools. It's not going to take away from her. It's not going to make her worse. It's actually going to make her better. I fully believe that if we use them right. So, okay, we'll wrap it up for there. That's it for the week. Conundrum tomorrow, 10 a.m. Eastern. That'll go out on the podcast platforms. Newsletter will go out, obviously, through email on Sunday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern is when it goes out. But if you're on the list, if you want to get on that list and you don't want to miss this next episode, we're in the 70s now. It's like episode or issue number like 76, 77. So it's getting up there. You just go to thedailyishow.com and you can sign up for that newsletter. And finally, if you want to be part of the continuing conversation, join our Slack community, and you can get there. That's free too, by going to the Daily I Show community. There you go. Like and subscribe. Love all our stuff. We appreciate y'all. We have a lot of fun doing this show. We're coming up on episode 600 before too long. So keep supporting us, and we'll keep putting out the content. Until Monday, guys, have a great weekend. Bye.